Battle for Liberty. This is the Bill Mason Show.
Hello, welcome. Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Here we go. Thursday it is.
A Thursday edition. Now,
Yes.
it's all about George Soros tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna deep dive into some Soros stuff and maybe go back a little bit in time because his name pops up in the news now, and people who haven't heard of him before are like, I don't get it. Why is he a demon? Why is this guy so bad?
Right.
You know, and when you really look back into like some of the really deep dark stuff in the establishment of the deep state and the establishment of the dirty money foundations that he has, you have to go back to like him as far back as the 50s and 60s, you know.
Oh, it's pretty bad. I mean, we're going back all the way to World War II, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, from what I went back to, I mean, he was part of the people who just took the Jews' possessions. You know, he was in a faction of Hungarians, and they had somebody adopt him and say, oh, he's Jewish heritage of nature.
Well, he's an evil guy. He's not religious at all.
No, not at all. He's an atheist, but
Right.
he was born a Jew, and his family were non-practicing Jews. And when they saw the Nazis were going to take over, him living in Hungary, his father made somebody prestigious adopt him and say this is his Christian nephew.
Right.
And he got put on a team of people that just literally took their possessions from the Jews as the Nazis rolled through.
Right. And now he wants to destroy America.
Because we're in the way. We are the beacon of freedom. And you know, I don't know if we're going to touch on when he started this thing called the Quantum Fund. He learned that toppling countries was the best way to make money, you know, in the long term. Like a suffering country is a lot easier to manipulate than a free one.
Right.
And he very early put his claws in, because if your country is struggling to survive and some guy, this guy Jim Rogers, yeah, him and Jim Rogers were partners back in the 1960s. And they started the Quantum Fund, which is basically a bunch of Cayman Island nonsense funds. As they steamrolled into these countries and said, hey, I would like to know how your government works. Here's $10 million. Well, back then in the 1960s, that was a buttload of money, and you got to do whatever you wanted. I mean, the guy Jim Rogers, he still lives in the Philippines, and that's his first partner that really got him started. And when they started the Quantum Fund, they were promising people 4,000% returns, and they delivered. You know?
Right. So they're Madoff.
Yeah, it was basically a Madoff scheme, but by toppling countries, creating civil unrest, and then finding countries to come in and save them,
Right.
okay? And then finding ways to divert the money to where they needed it to be.
Right.
And America has always been in the way. Our free market that we have is a big thorn in his side.
Right. Well, he's evil, and he sided with the Democrats, so he's on the side of the Democrat Party.
Because they'll sell their soul for $1. That's
Right.
why. I mean, you know, they have no morals. There's nothing left for them to, pretend that there's some kind of, they don't have any ground to stand on the moral level, and they really have proven now that they're okay with destruction, and they like the illusion of the rebuild because it's easy to steal money. And everybody gets a piece. You know, it's not like you're fixing something that's established. You're like, oh my God, it's a tragedy. We need so much money. And then in the midst of that, there's all these created entities that you could steal from. And Soros is a master of that. If you look at the amount of businesses that he's got his hooks into, that, are not only funding some of the political agendas, but putting people in power that are a power vacuum that he created. So he creates the power vacuum, and then he puts these people in that he knows are on his side.
Right.
I mean, he's not a dummy. He's just evil.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
we're gonna listen to a video. It's a pastor. He actually puts it together very well. Just take a look at what he said.
Yeah.
Dare I say that there are those alive today who are quite literally hell-bent on the destruction of the United States of America. Back on January 25th, the Washington Times ran an op-ed piece about how George Soros, at age 89, is still on a quest to destroy America. In it, the writer says, George Soros is 89 years old, but by gosh, before he dies, he's going to see to the internal destruction of America. At least that's how it seems. In Davos, Switzerland, Soros announced the infusion of $1 billion with a B dollars into a new open society to fund schools around the world, to educate against nationalism, is how the Financial Times reported it. In other words, to train the next generation in the evils of sovereignty, to teach the emerging youth how to become good, obedient citizens of the world. Soros calls it his, quote, most important and enduring project ever, close quote. No wonder it truly could be. If successful, it could mean the collapse of borders, the implementation of world government, and the end of America as we know it.
Battle for Liberty. This is the Bill Mason Show.
Wow, listen to that. I mean, unbelievable. He puts it all together.
He nailed it, and I don't know exactly what era that is from, because, you know, he's saying George Soros is 89. I didn't realize he was that old. I mean, judging by the decor of that church, it had to be years old. That means Soros is really, I mean, feeding on embryos to stay alive.
No, it said January 2020 on it.
Oh, it did really?
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
It's just an old school paneling church, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, he could be the vampire. I don't know, but anyway, so it's
Still.
Yeah, it's current. But yeah, I mean, look at it. He's an evil guy. You know, he stands the opposite what Trump believes: nationalism,
Right.
American first, no open borders. He wants open borders. So it's it's the opposite.
Well, if you think about it from his perspective, so like he was raised in this chaotic environment, you know, a Nazi World War II-esque total destruction, going into cities that were just blown up and on fire. So that's normal. Like, most kids don't grow up in that normalcy and crave it. And this guy seems to crave that kind of, that's his view when he opens his Park Avenue window. He wants to see New York on fire. I mean, honestly, he's really a sick person. But the funny thing is that he's funding so many people that really have no idea how deep and dark he actually is. Because some of these, you know, politicians that are trying to get their foot in the door, they really think like, oh, he's just a nice guy. He really believes in the Green New Deal. No, he doesn't. He literally wants globalism. Right. He's using your Green New Green New Deal. I'm sorry. I keep confusing. He's using the Green New Deal to just pave the way for globalism. And he's not a dummy. He's done so many of these things before. So, I mean, America is probably his greatest prize. He wants to take it down like as a trophy.
I think so. So we have another video. It's where, you know, he gets all these people together lurking in the background. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah.
Though unlike you, we don't divide ourselves into countries. We're one united people.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for a long time.
We're honored and privileged to be able to assist mankind with our knowledge and technology.
But the visitors didn't just get here. They've been here for years. For decades, they've been implementing a plan that will result in the extermination of every man, woman, and child on the face of this earth.
Behind closed doors on this New York campus, a secret gathering of some of the world's most powerful people. Gates, Buffett, Bloomberg, Winfrey, together with others at the meeting, including George Soros, Ted Turner, David Rockefeller.
That much money, that much power around one table. It begs the question, what were they doing? What were they scheming?
Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. But let's take a look.
These posing as humans established themselves in all facets of life, whether it be business, government, religion, the military. It took years. And once embedded among us, they set out to cause worldwide instability.
A new world order can emerge.
Unnecessary wars. Economic meltdown. Faith twisted into extremism.
What difference at this point does it make?
Tonight we're announcing the expansion of our healing centers. The goal is to open one in every major city across the world. We want to provide complete medical services to all.
You're talking about universal health care.
The idea of a Medicare for all.
But that's called the death panel.
I believe that's what you call it, yes.
They gain trust with the promise of friendship and technology, and of course all they're really doing is positioning themselves as the saviors of mankind.
You've agreed that you're going to spend more than $100 million on this. Where is that money being spent?
You warned everybody about this in a TED Talk in 2015. You predicted this would happen.
If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war.
There we are. So the chess pieces are in place, and the person in there to stop them is Trump.
I hope so. Honestly, because if Trump can't do it, and let's just say some idiot like Biden, who's basically going to be a glove for like every globalist that's ever chomped at the bit. I mean, they're going to be like, "Go to sleep, Joe. We got this."
Oh,
I mean, it would be terrible for not only this country but for the world.
It would be bad. I can't even think about it. It's that horrible.
Well, so some of the things that they touched on in there, how now I know one of that. I think that was from the show V, maybe with yeah. Okay, so the aliens come down and they go, how do we get these people? How do we enslave these people? Mm-hmm. Well, we tell them everything they want to hear. That's how we do it. Right. We tell them that we're here to save them, and we're really here to not. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, when they compared it to the Democrats' vision, okay, like the universal health care, it's a national, it's important, we need to have it, okay? It's just a difference of a really hot girl saying it or Bernie Sanders. Right. I mean, I'd rather have the premier than the latter, but, the reality is they have latched on to this thing where they know that there are people out there that are like, please tell me what I want to hear, and I'll do anything. Right. And there is a part of this population, I think it's proven, that we are divided right now. There are people that, hook, line, and sinker believe it, and people that are absolutely against it. And I'm on the latter of that. I'm absolutely against globalism, but I can't believe that there are people marching for communism right now in Seattle.
Burning flags.
Waving communist flags in Seattle, in this country right now. That is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, what's so weird? Hong Kong is carrying American flags,
right,
and we're carrying communist flags.
Right, and I'm thinking, where did we go wrong as a country? Like, where did they see communism as this like beacon of light where everybody's happy? All I've ever heard and all I've ever read were horrible stories of communism. And I'm so tired of hearing the argument like, well, maybe they didn't do it right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to go on the Chinese label. So
that third way.
Yeah, I mean, the third way, the economic and liberalism versus a harsh political communism.
Yeah. And that guy, like I said, that guy that started everything with George Soros, that no one actually talks about him. This guy, Jim Rogers, he lives in Singapore in like a freaking palace. And he has like lady boys running around his palace. And it's like, it's a really weird thing with like fountains everywhere. And he wrote a book about how China is the gateway. You know, China is the gateway to anything you want. And he wrote that back in the 80s. And it's something like, was it really a prequel to what they were going to do? Because now you watch Democrats defend China like it's the greatest thing ever. And you're like, are you serious? They do atrocities like equal to Hitler at this point.
Yeah, who cares about harvesting organs and selling them? And who cares about putting million Muslims in
camps? Yeah, we just did that on the show. The Uyghurs get rounded up on the streets and thrown into camps, and the Democrats are like, stop making fun of China, and they get all upset about the Kung Fu virus. Don't call it the Kung Fu virus. It's like a big deal to them. Meanwhile, George Soros is just pulling strings going, yeah, keep it up. That's good. That's what I want, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's listen to George Soros on globalism. Take a look.
All right.
So I had to experiment, and it was a learning process. The first part was this subversive activity, disrupting, but then I became concerned with the problems of globalization, where you have global markets, but you have politics based on the sovereignty of states. So how do you deal with that issue? And then I came to the realization that open society is endangered by our current leadership in this country. And that is when I refocused my attention on the United States.
There he is. So he's focusing his attention on the United States for globalism.
Well, it's gonna cost him the most money, because if you look at what he did to Venezuela in 10 years, he only spent less than $100 million in Venezuela, creating the uprising and all that stuff. Like, he's part of that too. He's got fingerprints all over that. So like, that was nothing. So now he's moving on to really focus on the United States. I think if Hillary Clinton had won, let's just say, God forbid she had won, the stuff that he wanted would have just been policy. It would have been backdoor policy, no fight whatsoever. So Trump is the resistance to that. If we didn't have any windshield right now, we'd be like, we would just be sucking in the suck of globalism, because Hillary would just be letting it in. Because Soros has always been down with the Clintons. I mean, since probably the late 70s, for what I looked up.
Yep, open borders, you name it. So let's take a look.
He loves it.
Yeah, well, we have a clip of Hillary. She's a little younger here in this clip, but take a look.
All right.
It is not enough for America's future that some participate and others don't. We have been given an extraordinary blessing, and at this moment in time, our country needs us. And we need people like George Soros, who is fearless and willing to step up when it counts. So please join me in welcoming George Soros.
It is the first time that I feel that I need to stand up and do something really and become really engaged in the electoral process in this country.
All right, there he is. So it looks the same. It looks like he doesn't change at all.
Yeah, like I said, I think he's feeding on embryos. I mean, this dude and these people, there's like a culture of these people. Like, you look at Nancy Pelosi, and she has these weird times where she looks kind of like everything's tightened up on her, and like she looks like 10 years younger. And then you see her like a few days later when the adrenochrome wears off, and she's like, she's like, you know. So these people, man, I don't know. I think they're vampiric. I mean, that's just my opinion. But they need to suck off of other people to survive.
I agree. We have another clip here about George Soros being non-religious.
Total.
Yeah, I understand he's an atheist.
Yeah.
So, no wonder he wants destruction. Let's take a look at what he says.
Sure.
Only a spectator, the property was being taken away. So I had no role in taking away that property. So I had no sense of guilt.
Are you religious?
No.
Do you believe in God?
No. It was actually probably the happiest year of my life, that year of German occupation. For me, it was a very positive experience. It's a strange thing, because you see incredible suffering around you, and in fact, you're in considerable danger yourself. But you're 14 years old and you don't believe that it can actually touch you. You have a belief in yourself, your belief in your father. It's a very happy-making, exhilarating experience.
There he is. So, yeah.
No bones about it. He's okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the scary part of I guess of that is that's like a thing now. Like, to be atheist is almost like, oh, if you believe in a higher power of any kind, you're either a fundamentalist extremist or you're a Looney Tune. And these atheists are like, I'm smart. I'm an atheist. So believe me, I know what I'm talking about. And you hear a lot of this these days when it comes to, elected officials too. You're watching the new breed of elected official. It used to be that their morals were something that was important to their constituents. Not anymore.
Right.
Now the people in these voting blocks, especially in the, the heavy, D plus 29 blocks, like AOC just won, those churches are empty on Sunday anyway.
Right.
Those they don't care. They want someone who has no morals, no bottom. They like it, and that's who they elect, because they say, you know what? My vision is their vision, and we're smarter. We're more educated than you, and you dummy, you believe in God, you're an idiot. So they always have this higher than now level once they get to this point where all George Soros does is sign checks. Most of the front of checks. Right. One of his quotes, actually, George Soros said something, this is back in the 80s, that there's two kinds of people in the world. People that sign the back of checks and people that sign the front. And he said, to me, it's the same thing. Like, you get to the point where your money, the amount of money coming in is almost equal to what's going out, no matter what you spend.
Right.
And him, Bill Gates, like, there's a lot of guys like that. That's why they don't care. They think there's no God. They really don't think that regular working class people are of any value. So, I mean, you're just like cattle. So you're in their way. And there's something about a George Soros and a Bill Gates together that kind of spooks me out, man.
Right. Well, we don't produce anything because Bill Gates no longer works at Microsoft. Well, you don't produce anything, like George Soros don't produce anything.
Right.
You don't produce anything. You don't need the average Joe.
No. And also you don't need morals.
No.
You don't need actually police. Like, if you look at the way he's funding this, and I know we have one video about the guy who left Black Lives Matter because of the defund the police and all that stuff. And that is something that, not everybody agrees with, but guess what? When you have private security, what do you need police for? That's just for, the common folk. So, the agenda-driven stuff behind Soros is now trickling in to these younger politicians, and they see him as almost like a god. And even after he's dead, I'm sure he left enough money in these foundations to fuel this crap.
His son's taking over after he's gone.
His son's taking over, and who's his son married to? Did you ever know that?
Yes.
Adam Schiff's sister.
Right.
Wow.
Well, you can see the beady eyes with Adam Schiff. You can see that evil in him.
Yeah, he's definitely like pulled a big pull off the hookah, whatever those guys are smoking, man. And he is he is so entrenched that I think he can lie. And honestly, I think if they gave Schiff a lie detector test, he would pass because he doesn't even know he's lying. Anyway.
Well, let's go on to the next video. Just a little bit of history lesson of George Soros. Here we go.
Okay.
Right. And you watched lots of people get shipped off to the death camps.
Right. I was 14 years old. And I would say that that's when my character was made.
In what way?
That one should think ahead, one should understand and anticipate events, one is threatened. It was a tremendous threat of evil. I mean, it was a very personal experience of evil.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes, yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right.
I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child you don't see the connection, but it created no problem at all.
No feeling of guilt.
No.
For example, that I'm Jewish, and here I am watching these people go. I could just as easily be there. I should be there. None of that.
Well, of course, I could be on the other side, or I could be the one from whom the thing is being taken away. But there was no sense that I shouldn't be there, because that was, well, actually, funny way, it's just like in markets, that if I weren't there, of course I wasn't doing it, but somebody else would be taking it away anyhow. In other words, whether I was there or not, I was only a spectator. The property was being taken away. So I had no role in taking away that property. So I had no sense of guilt.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, somebody's killing your mother or something and you don't do anything about it. She's going to be killed anyway. What's the deal?
That's actually proof he has a psychological disorder.
Right.
And I mean, if you've read, I've read a couple articles that have dove into George Soros, and he said that there's a lot of madness in his family, that people have, like, you know, lost their minds, a lot of psych wards on the females of his family. And that's like a psychosis. When you can justify that stuff, that's almost like a murderer who says, like, hey, that guy shouldn't have been there on Saturday at 6 o'clock, or else I wouldn't have killed him.
Right.
Somebody else would. I mean, like, that's a sick way to look at that period of his life. And I mean, I guess that set forth the evil that he's going to continue with. I mean, he looks at money as a reward for being smarter than other people.
Right.
Now, him being someone that's never actually, like, had to work for it, it always was about taking advantage of other people and outsmarting other people, you know, getting over. And that thing that he does, he sells that to other people. And of course they're going to say, well, yeah, why would I want to, you know, stack bricks all day?
Mm-hmm.
I would rather take advantage of other people too.
Yeah.
So you have to first establish this empty hole inside yourself where there's no morals, and then fill it with this ability to just get over on people on a daily basis, and there you have it. You're like a little Soros puppet.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it shows his mentality, definitely.
Oh yeah, he's definitely deranged.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people couldn't live with themselves doing the things that he's done and is still doing.
Yeah, and putting children and Jews on a train to go get slaughtered.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And then going through, like, their house where they raised their family, and taking the jewelry and taking everything, and just being like, if somebody else would have did it if it wasn't me.
Right. Wow.
Unreal.
All right, so we have another video of George Soros and Black Lives Matter. Let's take a look.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So Anyway, so George Soros is funding Black Lives Matter.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's why guys like him, so people who don't know who he is, his name's Lord Jamar. He's a rapper. He was in a band called the Brand Nubians back in the 90s. Very like empower the black people type of guy. But it was very like the responsibility of black people is on black people. It wasn't like let's ask everybody else to stop what they're doing and help black people. He was kind of like a guy that like in their music was like, we need more fathers in the home. We need, you know what I mean? We need to do the things that are going to make the next generation stronger. Like it was a different kind of black movement. It was actually like, hey, let's keep it real in our community and then work our way out. You know, where when Black Lives Matter came in, he left and he was just like, I don't know, this doesn't make any sense to me. You know, like this direction doesn't empower black people. It only makes black people look like they're rioting, looting, like crazy, defund the police, like all of that stuff. Like he was one of the ones that spoke out like, no, the black community needs police. There are people that are bad that need to be policed. It's not like, you know, even, you know, you ask most black people that live in a neighborhood and you say, you know, do you know everybody around here is trustworthy? And they'll be the first ones that'll be like, oh, hell no. That guy over there, I wouldn't want him anywhere near my house. You know, so it's not like there's this big unity like, oh, in the black community because it doesn't exist. And Lord Jamar, was one of the first ones to kind of approach that. That's why he left the movement. You know, that's why he said, no, this is not the way to go about it. This is BS.
Right. Yeah, so that was a very good video. So
yeah,
let's talk about, let's listen to O'Reilly today about Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
Black Lives Matter is a slogan. Nothing wrong with the slogan. Black Lives Matter is also an organization. Okay? The organization is formally called Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. Let me repeat. Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. That's the organization. They get millions of dollars. But they are not approved as a tax-exempt organization. So if you give them money, on paper, you could not deduct it. So according to the Washington Times investigation, George Soros, since 2015, has given Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation $33 million. And on paper, he can't write it off, but he can. Now here it comes. So the Black Lives Matter Global Network, okay, incorporated in Delaware, Joe Biden's home state, has forged an alliance with a group called 1,000 Currents. 1,000 Currents. C-U-R-R-E-N-T-S. 1,000 Currents. They're in Oakland, California. They are run by a guy named Paul Strasberg. Let's see Paul. Far left, way left. Worked for the Ford Foundation, which is a huge benefactor of far left things. He is a Peace Corps, former Peace Corps volunteer. He runs 1,000 Currents. They have made an alliance with the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. And because of that alliance, all right, your donation is tax deductible. It's very, very complicated, okay? So I'm going to quote, fiscal sponsorships. It's so common. 1,000 Currents is sponsoring financially the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. Because they're sponsoring it, the government allows you to write off the donations. It goes through the 1,000 Currents organization to Black Lives Matter Foundation. Now, what happens to the money? Ready? 25% of the millions of dollars that go into the Black Lives Matter Global Foundation is spent on salaries and benefits. A quarter. But it gets better. 46% goes to consultant fees. That could be anybody. That could be your mom, your daughter, your son. You're consulting. You're telling the Black Lives Matter Foundation what they should do.
All right, so I didn't give none of those consulting fees, did you?
I would love to. I have so much consulting that I'm willing to give. And I am willing to consult anyone for six figures. I mean, let's do it.
All right, sounds good. The Bill Mason Consulting Firm.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you know, we could be a think tank like that. I mean, the fact is that the things that we think of are in the way of these clowns. So I don't think that guys like Soros, Open Currents, Open Society, and all that other stuff are going to contribute to us.
Not after they listen to our show, no.
No, it would take less than 5 minutes, and they'd be like,
click, right.
Yeah, bye.
All
So
right. Well,
maybe we're all that stands in the way of people like that. Let's hope. And you know what's funny? I had a guy who recently tuned into the show, a little short story, and he said, "Hey man, I went back and I watched some of your older shows. 2020 is a really crazy year, and you guys kind of documented it, man." He goes, "You might be famous like later on." And I said, "Cool, man, I'm down with that."
Well, I mean, we're the first one to say it was a pandemic. First one.
Exactly. So, you know, some of our newer viewers, if you want to go back and see like where we started, it's kind of funny. It's kind of hokey. We kind of worked our way into where we are now. But you know what? Like I said, 2020 has been a crazy year, and that's kind of where we started off. So it really is a timeline of what's going on.
Well, we started in World War III almost in Iran.
Yep.
So,
that's where we were.
Crazy. All right. Well, that's the show tonight. I appreciate you watching. Be looking out for us, emergency broadcasts. We're on here on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah.
And make sure you subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yep.
Hear about the explosion in Iran today?
No. What happened?
Huge explosion in Iran. Military base. Looked like a nuclear bomb that went off.
Really? Was it a test?
No, it was a mistake or somebody hit it. Like Israel or somebody.
Whoa. How about that? Maybe we will do an emergency. Let's look into that.
Yeah. I mean, if people listen to this last part of the show, they're listening to it. But we might do an emergency when it materializes something else.
Yeah, I mean that could be that whole region's a powder keg. So
it is.
Wow. I can't find it on Twitter.
Yeah, there's a video on Twitter. I was going to have it on the show tonight, but it was all Soros tonight.
Oh, okay. All right.